Welcome back to the Quarterly Call. All content is for informational purposes and is not investment advice. Please consult with an investment professional. Okay, so we're jumping right in today. We're looking at the Q3 2025 results, and it really is a tale of two stories, isn't it?
It really is. You've got this incredibly strong core performance, things looking really solid operationally.
Yeah, hidden records.
Exactly. But then, bam, you get this curveball from Brazil specifically, a big financial complexity that kind of muddies the waters a bit.
Right, so today our job is really to cut through that noise, figure out what's what.
Yeah, precisely. We want to understand the health of the business right now, and engagement seems key there. But maybe more importantly, look ahead to 2026.
Where are they placing their bets?
Exactly. We're talking advertising scaling up this big push into interactivity, gaming,
Yeah.
and how these huge global hits, these cultural moments, actually fit into the strategy.
So unpacking what's driving that record engagement and how they plan to grab, well, the rest of that massive market opportunity that's still out there.
That's the mission. #tag ISTACI, core business health and financial nuances.
All right, let's start with that baseline. If you sort of peel back the layer of that financial complexity for a moment, how does the core business actually look? Revenue was pretty much on target for Q3, right?
Yeah, revenue landed right where they expected. And operationally, the assessment is overwhelmingly positive. The business is described as very healthy.
And what's backing that up beyond just the revenue number?
It's engagement, specifically their share of TV time. They hit record highs again in Q3 25.
Okay.
In the US, which is obviously crucial, they captured 8.6% of total TV time. And in the UK, another major market, 9.4%.
Wow, okay. 9.4% in the UK, that's significant penetration.
It really is. These aren't small bumps. It shows they're deeply embedded in how people watch TV now. The product's clearly working. Retention must be strong.
But, nearly 10% sounds dominant, almost like they've saturated the market. Yet when you frame it differently...
Yes. When you zoom out, the picture changes completely. That's the strategic angle, the remaining opportunity.
Tell us about that, because that seems to be what's driving the whole long-term plan.
It is. Despite being the clear leader, globally, they only capture about 7% of the total addressable consumer spending on entertainment. 7%.
Only 7.
Okay. And if you go back to that share of TV time metric, even in the US, their biggest market where they hit that 8.6%, that's still only roughly 1/10 of all time spent watching television.
Hold on. Just to make that really clear for everyone listening, for every, say, 10 minutes someone is watching TV in the US, only 1 minute is on their service.
Roughly, yes. On average. The other 9 minutes, that's traditional linear TV. It's YouTube, it's other streamers, it's gaming consoles.
That 90%, that's the target.
That is the massive white space. And that's why management keeps saying, they're focused on organic growth. They believe the big shift, the move away from linear TV, still has decades left to run.
So the strategy isn't necessarily radical reinvention?
Not fundamentally. It's keep making great stuff, keep improving the product, keep making it easy and compelling to watch. And those viewing minutes will just continue to shift over, slowly, steadily.
Which eventually translates into more subscribers, more revenue, more profit. It's a long game.
A very long game, built on that gradual erosion of the old model.
Okay, that context is absolutely vital. But we have to tackle the elephant in the room for Q3, the thing that actually made the results look less strong than they perhaps were operationally.
Right, the Brazilian tax matter, this non-cash expense that popped up.
And it was big enough that it actually stopped operating income from beating their forecast, is that right?
That's exactly right. Without this specific charge, they would have exceeded their operating income guidance. So yeah, we need to dig into what this actually is.
Okay, let's get into the weeds a little. What kind of tax are we talking about here? Because they were very clear it's not income tax.
Correct. Not income tax, not a tax on profits. It's considered a cost of doing business in Brazil. It's a specific gross tax on outbound payments. The official name is quite a mouthful. The Contribution for Intervention in Economic Domain, or CIDO.
CIDO. Okay, and what's the point of a tax like that? A gross tax on money leaving the country?
Well, often these kinds of taxes are aimed at encouraging companies to use local services, or maybe to ensure the government gets a slice when services are paid for from a subsidiary to a foreign parent. In this case, it's a 10% tax on payments from Netflix Brazil to Netflix US.
It was for what exactly?
For essential stuff, content licensing, the technology platform, operational support. Basically everything needed to actually run the service in Brazil.
And they weren't paying this before Q325.
No, they weren't accruing for it. They had a favorable ruling from a lower court back in 2022. That ruling essentially said the tax didn't apply to their specific situation, which involved payments for services that didn't include a direct transfer of technology.
So they felt legally covered. What changed? Why suddenly record this huge expense now?
A Brazil Supreme Court decision in August 2025. And crucially, it wasn't even their case. It was against a completely different, unrelated company.
Ah, the domino effect.
Exactly. The Supreme Court ruled, I think it was 7-4, and basically widened the interpretation of this CID tax. They decided it does apply even when there's no specific technology transfer involved in the service payment.
Which described their situation perfectly.
Precisely. Suddenly, the legal ground shifted under their feet. The probability of winning their own case dropped dramatically, so accounting rules meant they had to recognize the probable loss.
And book the expense. Covering what period? Just 2025?
No, and this is important. The expense covers the period from 2022 all the way through Q3 2025.
So it's mostly backward looking.
Yes. Management pointed out only about 20% of the total charge actually relates to 2025 operations. The rest is catching up for 22, 23, and the first part of 25.
Okay. And the key takeaways for listeners worried about this being a recurring issue.
Two main things. First, they stressed this particular tax, the CID structure, is unique globally. They don't expect similar surprises in other major countries.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Second, and this loops back to the start, without this specific, non-recurring, mostly historical charge, they would have beaten their Q3 operating income and margin forecasts. So the underlying business performed better than the headline number suggests.
Right. So it's a significant footnote, but it's understood, it's contained, and importantly, it doesn't really change the forward-looking financial picture.
Exactly. The financial goals for 2026 remain the same. Keep growing revenue healthily, keep expanding those operating margins, and keep increasing free cash flow. They'll give the detailed full-year guidance in January, but the strategy holds.
Which is basically keep investing in the stuff that drives growth. Which brings us nicely to content. Hashtag Tech2. Content, hits, and theatrical strategy. Okay, content. We saw total view hours actually grew faster in Q3 compared to the first half of the year. That's interesting. It's not just about adding subscribers. It's getting the ones you have to watch more.
Right, and that comes down to, well, partly that big ongoing shift from linear TV we talked about. That's the tide lifting all streaming boats to some extent.
But internally, what's their philosophy?
They call it the steady drumbeat. The focus is just relentlessly putting out high-quality, relevant stuff across all genres for all kinds of people in all the countries they operate in, week after week after week.
It's interesting, though, they also emphasize that even their biggest hits, the ones everyone talks about,
Yeah.
they usually drive less than 1% of total viewing hours each, which sounds kind of low for a blockbuster.
It does, but it highlights how important the entire library is. The platform isn't just relying on 3 or 4 massive shows a year. It's the thousands of other titles, the niche content, the documentaries, the foreign language series that keep people engaged day in, day out.
The long tail.
Exactly. But that said, those huge less than 1% hits, they are absolutely vital for bringing in new subscribers, for dominating social media, for becoming part of the cultural conversation. You need both, the steady drumbeat and those big crashing cymbal moments.
Speaking of crashing cymbals, Q4 has the final season of Stranger Things. That's about as big as it gets.
Oh yeah, that's a global event guaranteed. System defining, as you said.
But looking beyond that, into 2026, what's coming up to keep that momentum going? Because they need to keep feeding the beast.
The 2026 slate looks, frankly, incredibly strong. On the series side, you've got huge returning franchises. Bridgerton, Beef Season 2, Emily in Paris, One Piece Season 2.
Guaranteed performers.
Absolutely. These are known quantities that deliver huge audiences. But the film slate for 26 is where they seem to be really pushing into that event movie space.
Like what?
We've got Narnia, directed by Greta Gerwig. That's huge. Here Comes the Flood with Denzel Washington. Apex, starring Charlize Theron. And the Peaky Blinders movie, The Immortal Man.
Okay, those are big names, big projects. It feels like a deliberate move to offer that theatrical scale experience, but exclusively at home.
That seems to be exactly the strategy. Prestige, scale, event-level excitement delivered straight to the platform.
Now let's talk about maybe the biggest surprise hit of the year, K-pop Demon Hunters. It wasn't just big, it was apparently their most popular film ever.
Yeah, it was a phenomenon. And it's such a perfect case study for their whole content strategy.
How so?
Well, it started local, right? Animated in Korea, tapping into specific cultural trends. But then It just exploded globally, across borders, resonated everywhere, and generated this incredible cultural buzz.
And the business impact went way beyond just viewing hours, didn't it?
Massively. The most telling sign was the toy deal. Mattel and Hasbro were named as global co-master toy licensees.
Wait, Mattel and Hasbro, together, they're usually fierce competitors.
Exactly. For them to partner up like that is, well, possibly unprecedented. It just shows how powerful and potentially long-lasting the IP created by this film is perceived to be.
That ties right back to that builders versus buyers idea we'll get to later.
Yeah.
If you can create IP from scratch that commands that kind of immediate market reaction.
Why pay billions to acquire someone else's library, right? It completely reinforces their focus on building their own exclusive IP. But there's another key lesson from K-pop Demon Hunters.
Which is?
How the streaming release strategy actually helped it become such a hit.
Right, because it wasn't an instant #1 smash hit on day one.
No, it built momentum over time. Weeks, even months. It was driven by the superfans watching it again and again, by word of mouth, by the recommendation engine pushing it to new audiences.
And the fact that anyone, anywhere could watch it immediately helped that buzz spread.
Absolutely. Ubiquitous distribution. Everyone knew where to find it. If it had been stuck in theaters for 6 weeks first, a lot of that organic social media energy and repeat viewing might have fizzled out. The streaming window enabled that slow burn success.
But they did do theatrical events eventually. The sing-alongs. Was that a test? Maybe rethinking the exclusive streaming window?
They were very clear about this. No, it was marketing, pure and simple. The sing-alongs happened 8 weeks after the streaming premiere. It was positioned as a fun, extra thing for the fans. A great night out, they called it. It helped keep the buzz going, especially around Halloween when they expanded them globally. But it was all designed to drive people back to the streaming platform, not to establish a theatrical first model.
So reinforcing the core service, not competing with it. Makes sense. Now, that idea of creating an event, something urgent, applies even more strongly to live programming. The Canelo-Crawford fight in Q3 was a monster.
An absolute monster. It really showed the power of live appointment viewing. The key stat they shared was mind-blowing. Most viewed men's championship boxing match this century.
This century? Wow.
Over 41 million viewers, live +1. It was the top 10 most watched titles in 91 countries. 91.
Okay, that's undeniable impact. It drives conversation, it brings people in, maybe keeps them subscribed longer.
Exactly. It offers something the on-demand library, great as it is, just can't. That shared, global, gotta watch it now moment.
But does this mean they're pivoting to become a sports broadcaster? Are they going to start bidding billions for NFL season rights or the Premier League?
No, absolutely not. They were quite explicit. Live is still a small part of the overall content budget, a small slice of total viewing. The impact is huge, but the strategy is very focused.
Focused on what, specifically?
Big, global, self-contained live events, not the long, expensive season-long packages that traditional sports networks rely on. Think specific fights, specific games, unique events.
So the goal isn't volume, it's impact per event.
Precisely. Thrill the audience with something unique. Drive buzz and signups. The revenue from ads and subs is the result of providing that thrill, not the primary driver for acquiring the rights in the first place.
So what else is coming up on the live slate following that strategy?
It's pretty diverse and ambitious. November has the Jake Paul versus Tank Davis fight. Then in December, that huge NFL Christmas Day doubleheader, Dallas-Washington and Detroit-Minnesota. Those are massive draws.
Right.
Beyond sports, they're doing that non-scripted Skyscraper Live thing, which sounds intriguing. Plus, major awards shows like the SAG Awards. And longer term, they have ongoing WWE content, the World Baseball Classic from Japan in 2026, and then the really big one, the FIFA Women's World Cup in both 2027 and 2031.
Okay, so definitely leaning into events with guaranteed global appeal and built-in fan bases.
Exactly. High impact, broad reach.
All right, we've covered the core subscription business, the content driving it. Now let's shift gears to the newer engines of growth, starting with advertising. The headline is pretty impressive. Ad revenue is set to more than double in 2025.
Yeah, the growth rate is phenomenal. Of course, it's still growing off a relatively small base compared to the billions in subscription revenue, but the momentum is undeniable.
What's driving that doubling?
A big piece is the U.S. upfront market. They more than doubled their commitments there from advertisers for inventory running across 2025 and into 2026. That provides a solid foundation.
But you mentioned something about how their growing is also changing.
Yes, and this is strategically really important. They're seeing even faster growth rates in programmatic sales.
Okay, break that down. Upfront versus programmatic. Why does faster growth in programmatic matter more for the long run?
Sure. Upfront is the traditional way TV ads are sold, big commitments made months ahead. It's predictable. Programmatic is the automated, data-driven, real-time buying and selling of ad slots.
More targeted, more flexible.
Exactly. Much more precise, scalable, and efficient. The fact that programmatic is growing even faster suggests their ad technology is maturing quickly, advertisers are seeing good results from targeting, and that is where the bulk of future high-margin incremental ad revenue is expected to come from.
So if we think about building this massive ad business, like, crawl, walk, run,
Right.
where are they now?
They said they were squarely in the walking phase now. The basic infrastructure is built, the crawl part is done. Now it's about refining, improving the tools, making it easier for advertisers, basically getting really good at the fundamentals.
So what are the priorities for 2026 in this walking phase? What improvements should we be looking for?
3 main things they highlighted. 1, just make it easier to buy ads on the platform, reduce the friction. 2, increase advertiser diversity. That means bringing in more demand sources, like plugging into Amazon's DSP or focusing on local ad partnerships like AJA in Japan.
Got it. And a third.
Improve their own internal go-to-market capabilities, their ad sales teams, their support globally. And alongside all that, they're starting to innovate on the ad format itself.
Ah, yes, ad interactivity.
Yeah.
That's coming soon.
Rolling out later this quarter, apparently. Letting viewers actually engage with the ad on screen, click on things, maybe answer a poll, moving beyond just the passive video spot.
Which feels like a bridge towards the more advanced run phase, right? The phase that really leans into data and machine learning.
It does. They see 2026 primarily as the year for strengthening that foundation. Better data for targeting globally, better measurement tools. The big pivot towards the run phase, really doubling down on advanced capabilities like ML-based optimization, that's slated more for 2027.
And they feel they can move fast on that because of their existing tech muscle.
That's the argument.
Yeah.
They've got world-class data science and ML teams already built for optimizing the core product recommendations, personalization. They believe they can repurpose a lot of that expertise relatively quickly to build a very sophisticated ad business.
Okay, that technical strength leads perfectly into the next big opportunity.
Games and interactivity. They're framing this quite broadly, not just games.
Yeah, interactivity broadly. They see it as a natural complement to watching shows and movies, a way to create new kinds of entertainment experiences, deepen engagement, make the service stickier.
And the market sizes.
Huge. Roughly $140 billion in consumer spending on games, and that's excluding China and Russia. And before you even think about potential ad revenue from gaming engagement, it's a massive prize. So what are the first steps we're seeing in this broader interactivity push?
The first live interactive feature is real-time voting. They're testing it now on Dinner Time Live with David Chang.
Letting viewers influence the show as it happens.
Exactly. And they plan to roll this out more broadly, starting with their upcoming Star Search show in January. They see this kind of mechanic being really valuable for future live events, too.
Okay, that's the interactive part. What about actual games? They seem to be taking a curated approach.
Very much so. A less is more strategy. Focus on high-quality games in a few specific areas rather than just flooding the app with hundreds of mediocre titles.
And what are those key areas, those verticals?
4 main ones. First, immersive narrative games based on their own big IP. Think Squid Game, Unleashed, or that Thronlets game from Black Mirror. Leverage their hit shows.
Makes sense. Second,
Kids games. High-quality, safe titles like Peppa Pig, crucially offered with no ads and no in-app purchases. That's a big selling point for parents.
reinforces the core value prop. Third,
Mainstream, established hits. Licensing big, popular games like they did with Grand Theft Auto, which apparently drove significant engagement and retention.
okay. And the fourth vertical.
Socially engaging party games. And this is where it gets really interesting strategically.
How so? The party games.
Because of how they're delivering them, especially the ones designed for the TV, they're rolling out titles like Boggle Party, Pictionary, Game Night, Lego Party.
Right.
And the key innovation is using the member's phone as the controller.
Ah, okay. Explain that. Why is the phone as a controller such a big deal?
It removes almost all the friction. Think about playing party games on a console. You need enough controllers. They need to be charged, synced. It can be a hassle.
True.
With this model, all you need is the TV you're already watching on and the phone that everyone already has in their pocket or hand.
So no extra hardware to buy, no complex setup, instantly accessible.
Exactly. It makes these shared interactive experiences available to literally everyone in the household instantly. Management seems really excited about this, believing it unlocks genuinely new ways for families and friends to interact in the living room, driving engagement in a totally new way.
That does sound potentially like a game changer for casual communal gaming. Okay, sticking with content expansion, we also saw news about podcasts and partnerships with creators from social media. Why the Spotify deal?
It seems pretty tactical. It's a video co-exclusive for a curated selection of top Spotify podcasts, pop culture, true crime, lifestyle, sports.
So, not trying to become an audio platform, but bringing popular podcast video content onto their service.
That seems to be it. Broaden the entertainment offering, give people another reason to open the app, reinforce it as the go-to place for all kinds of screen time. It complements the main offering.
And partnering with creators like Mark Rober or Miss Rachel, who really built huge audiences on YouTube. Is that a new direction?
They frame it as a natural evolution. They've always sought out the best talent, wherever it comes from. They mentioned past examples like Miranda Sings or King Bach, who came from YouTube or Vine years ago.
Right, so it's not necessarily new, just maybe more visible now.
Perhaps. It shows they're plugged into where culture is happening online and are willing to invest in creators who've already proven they can build passionate communities, then give them the resources to make premium global shows or specials.
Makes sense. One last quick point before we look at the bigger picture. Premium feature testing. They confirmed they test things like offering free trials of the 4K tier.
Yeah, for example, if you have a 4K TV but you're not on the premium plan, they might prompt you to try it free for a bit, maybe timed with a big 4K event like Skyscraper Live.
And the goal there is simply,
Improve satisfaction, engagement, retention. Let people experience the best version of the service their hardware supports. If they like it, maybe they upgrade. Even if they don't, they've had a better experience, feel the platform offers more value, and are maybe more likely to stick around. Standard optimization testing, really.
okay, let's zoom out again. Strategic positioning. How do they see themselves in the broader competitive landscape, especially with all the consolidation happening in media? Are they sticking to that builders versus buyers mantra when it comes to M&A?
Very much so. The message was clear. They remain more builders than buyers. They fundamentally believe they have enough organic growth runway ahead of them, thanks to that huge untapped market we discussed, that they don't need to make a massive acquisition. Nothing is seen as a must-have.
But surely seeing competitors merge, like Warner Bros., Discovery, or Disney buying Fox, doesn't that concentration of famous IP create a potential threat down the line? Does it change the game at all?
They argue pretty strongly, actually, that no, it hasn't fundamentally shifted the competitive landscape for them.
Why not? How can it not matter?
But their point is that just buying another company, even one with great IP, doesn't magically give you the capabilities you need to actually win in global streaming. Meaning, merging two studios doesn't instantly create a world-class tech platform or solve how to acquire and retain customers efficiently in 190 countries, or build sophisticated payment systems, or deploy AI effectively for personalization. These are hard-won operational and technical skills.
Skills they believe they've built internally.
Exactly. Buying a legacy media company, which might still be struggling to build those same streaming muscles itself, doesn't necessarily help you accelerate. It could even slow you down.
So their M&A filter remains very strict.
Extremely disciplined, it seems, they ask. Is it a really big opportunity? Does it genuinely strengthen our IP or entertainment offering? Does it actually strengthen our existing capabilities or speed up our strategy? And critically, how does the price compare to just investing that money ourselves in content and product?
And they've also been clear they have no interest in buying old-school TV networks.
Zero interest, they said. So the boundaries seem pretty well defined. Focus on organic growth, supplemented by very targeted strategic acquisitions if they meet that high bar.
Okay, if they're focused on building internally, what about licensing content from others? As those other studios consolidate and launch their own streaming services, is there a risk they'll pull back content?
They acknowledge originals are the main driver, but they're still happy licensing third-party stuff to round out the library. The key point they make, though, is that they aren't overly reliant on any one supplier.
How so?
No single studio or supplier accounts for more than a small minority of total viewing hours on the platform globally. The library is just too diverse, so even if one major supplier pulled back, it wouldn't cripple their offering.
And why do those suppliers, who often have their own streaming services, still license big shows to them?
Because, the argument goes, Licensing to this platform is often the best way for that supplier to maximize the audience, revenue, and long-term value of their IP.
How does that work?
Think about shows like Suits or Peaky Blinders or even Breaking Bad years ago. They found massive new global audiences and cultural relevance, sometimes years after their original run, specifically because they were licensed onto this platform. It acts like a giant global marketing engine that suppliers recognize they often can't replicate themselves.
Interesting. It creates value for the IP holder, too. Okay, let's look at a future tool impacting everything. Generative AI. They have deep history in AI and machine learning. How are they thinking about Gen AI specifically?
Pragmatically, they see it mainly as a set of powerful new tools that will boost internal productivity and speed up innovation.
Tools for what?
Targeted investments internally. Things like creating better product experiences for members, streamlining the complex workflows involved in producing films and shows, and optimizing their growing advertising business. It's about efficiency and enhancement.
But the big fear lots of people have is AI replacing human creativity. If AI can write scripts, create animation, compose music, doesn't that threaten the core creative business?
They push back on that idea quite firmly. Their core belief is that true, great storytelling, the kind that really connects with people and moves culture, is incredibly rare and difficult. It requires a kind of human genius that they don't believe AI can replicate.
So AI won't be writing the next Stranger Things anytime soon.
That's their view. They think AI-generated content is more likely, at least in the near term, to compete with or replace existing user-generated content, or UGC. Thinks it's simpler videos, basic articles, that kind of thing.
Not premium, high-end entertainment.
Exactly. For the top creators they work with, they see AI primarily as an enhancement tool, something that can help talented people tell their stories better, faster, maybe explore new interactive formats.
They used an analogy, didn't they?
Yeah, with music. AI-generated music has technically been possible for a while, but it's still a tiny fraction of what people actually listen to. Established human artists, they mentioned Taylor Swift as the ultimate example, are still completely dominant. AI tools might help producers or artists, but they don't replace the core creative impulse or the fan connection.
So the focus is on practical tools that deliver real value internally, not chasing AI hype.
Seems to be the clear message. Help their teams work smarter and faster. Help creators realize their vision more effectively. #tag V, outro. So, wrapping up our look at Q3 2025, I think the key takeaways for you listening are pretty clear. First, financially, despite that Brazilian tax noise, the underlying business looks really solid. That issue was confirmed as unique, largely historical, and importantly, non-recurring.
Right, the operational health is strong. And the content strategy, particularly that builder approach, got a huge validation with something like K-pop Demon Hunters, creating a hit internally that had massive global reach and even changed industry dynamics, like that toy deal.
Definitely. And then looking forward, it's all about the acceleration of those new growth areas. Advertising is clearly moving into a more mature phase, focusing on execution and advertiser tools, with a clear path towards more sophisticated ML-driven capabilities in 2027.
And maybe the most intriguing piece is that push into interactivity in gaming, especially that strategy for TV party games using the phone as a controller. That feels like it could genuinely lower the barrier to entry for shared interactive fun in the living room.
It really could. And that leads to maybe the final thought to leave you with. Considering that push into games and interactivity right there on the main TV screen using the phone everyone already has, how might that start to change what a typical TV night even means for families or groups of friends over the next few years? What does that do for engagement, for shared experiences? That shift feels potentially quite profound.
Yeah, lots to think about there. How the definition of passive viewing versus active interaction might blur. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Quarterly Call. For more episodes, please remember to rate and follow our show. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.